Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar this morning. We are back with another great presentation for you today. My name is Misha Lalou, and I am the marketing specialist for Dyna-Energetics, and I will be the host for today's webinar. Our panelist today is Tom Meyer. Tom has been working in the oil field service industry since 1984 and has held various management positions in operations and business development in both domestic and international locations. He recently joined Dyna-Energetics as our market development manager, and he's based here in our Houston, Texas office. So Tom, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Misha. It's great to be here.
In today's webinar, we will be talking about effective P&A solutions for growing idle and orphaned wells. The Environmental Protection Agency estimates that more than 2 million abandoned wells in the United States are not properly plugged and are a significant source of leaking methane. Something that we've all started to hear more and more is the subject of ESG. This is of growing importance to investors and other stakeholders, so there is a greater incentive than ever for operators to strengthen their plug and abandonment programs. There is also increased attention at the governmental level, and many states have established orphan well programs focused on replugging old wells. Demand for effective plug and abandonment solutions is clearly on the rise. And so in today's webinar, we are going to focus on Dyna-Energetics' Dyna-Slot system, which has proven to be one of the most reliable and cost-effective P&A systems on the market. As always, if you have any questions about the Dyna-Slot, if you have any questions for Tom, any other general questions throughout the webinar, please be sure to type them in the Q&A function. This is located at the bottom of your screen. You will see a Q&A icon, so just go ahead and click that. And at any time, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them in there. We will be monitoring all the questions and saving some time at the end to address any questions you may have. So Tom, our first question for you today. What are some of the challenges that you might see with the permanent sealing and abandonment of wells?
Thanks, Misha. Let's talk about the challenges. So what we have are poorly executed cementing operations can lead to poor cementation jobs, leaving channels or voids in the cement, leaving gaps in the microannulus, allowing for leaks of gas or fluid to the surface. The gas or fluid can leak through the cement, can leak through the microannulus at the casing cement interface, and also leak around the formation at the cement formation interface. And these can cause serious problems when it comes to fluid and gas migration. So one of the ways that traditionally we've been curing these problems is by section milling. They actually go in and mill the casing, mill the cement, and open up the entire area to the cementing operations. So the Dyna-Slot actually replaces this and comes out with a much better solution, a much more cost-effective solution, a great savings in time and money and effort with the Dyna-Slot over section milling.
So now that we talked about some of those challenges that can arise, many challenges, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but could you talk us more through how the Dyna-Slot system provides a solution for these P&A challenges?
Sure. So the Dyna-Slot actually creates a large slot in the casing and deals directly with the annulus. As you can see in the top section, that is our perforating gun, our Dyna-Slot perforating gun. And the bottom is the casing that was actually perforated. In this case, it was 3 3/8 casing gun, shot in 5.5-inch casing. A few of the things I want you to look at is the scallop, the engineered scallop. This is unique to our gun system. It allows for a very concise slot. It also reduces the amount of burr height that we have with the gun. And also you can notice the helical pattern of the perforations and the overlapping slots. You can see we get full coverage around the circumference of the casing.
So in the image that we just saw and in one of the images that you showed earlier, you can see that the Dyna-Slot uses charges that are rectangular compared to your conventional round charges. Could you just explain to the audience why that is? Why do we use those rectangular charges? and what benefit that provides.
Okay, sure. Yeah, again, the DynaSlot is a unique gun system, and the charges are unique as well. It's like you said, they were rectangular. What this allows for is a much greater horizontal coverage than you would receive with a standard perforating charge. Area much larger, open to flow, and better access to the annulus behind the casing. You'll see that the calculations show that the gap or the slot that we cut is actually 3 to 4 times larger than you would get with a traditional jet charge. You can see on the slide, we show our standard charge is our 32 gram charge. It's designed for our 3 3/8 gun. We've been tested in 4.5, 5-inch and 5.5-inch casing. And it cuts a slot that's about 1.5 inches by 0.3 inches. Our XL charge, our big charge, is designed for our 5-inch and 7-inch gun. It's been tested in 7-inch and 9 5/8 inch casing. And it cuts a slot about 2 inches, 2 inches by 0.4 inches. So you can see the size of the slot is significant over what you would receive with a standard perforating charge.
So now that you've explained the charges, you've talked us through some of the benefits, I'd now like to transition to talking about the design of the system. So could you please walk us through the design of the system itself and just give us a high-level overview of how the full system works?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So if you look at the slide that we're going to show here, this is a 7-inch gun on the upper left and our 3 3/8 gun in the lower right. It is similar to a standard perforating gun. The outer is the gun body. The inner is our charge holder that holds the DynaSlot charges. And you can see on the slide the helical pattern that we allow for with the DynaSlot charge. Also, you'll notice on the guns that there's a top, middle, and bottom standoff. And this allows for a uniform slot around the circumference of the casing.
Those are some great images that we have of the DynaSlot. I really like those. So what are some of the advantages of a DynaSlot gun versus a standard perforating gun? If there's any key differences or advantages of our gun versus others, could you just walk us through that?
Sure. Let's take a look at the standard perforating gun. If you look at the upper right-hand picture, the blue dots are actually the perforations on a standard setup. This would be a 6 shots per foot, 60-degree phase. And what you'll notice right away is the gaps between the perforations, large gaps between the perforations. And therefore, if you're trying to hit small voids, small channels, or intersect the microannulus, you might have problems with a standard perforating gun. We look at the schematic on the left, and it shows that we don't intersect all the voids behind the casing. And when we go to squeeze or pump any cement or resin, you won't be able to reach the tiny voids and channels, leaving potential leak paths in the cement. However, we now look at what the DynaSlot can achieve. Again, the standard setup is a 20-degree phasing, and you can see that the slots actually overlap 50%. So we're guaranteed to have full coverage across the circumference of the casing. And when we go to look at the diagram on the left, you can see that we're able to intersect all the voids and channels behind the cement and making sure that we hit the microannulus or solve any kind of leak paths that might be in the cement. And therefore, we're able to do a proper squeeze on the cement job and shut off all the fluid and gas migration.
Thank you for that explanation. Those images and those graphs that you showed us really helped understand what you were talking about. So I just want to remind everyone that if you do have any questions, again, for Tom about the DynaSlot in general, please be sure you are typing those in the Q&A function. Again, that is located at the bottom of your screen. So Tom, could you now talk us through some of the different configurations that we offer or have available?
Sure, we'll take a look at our different gun sizes and charges. So you look at the left-hand side of this chart, And it shows our 3 3/8 gun, our 5-inch gun, and our 7-inch gun, and the standard shot density, which is 4 shots per foot. Phasing for our smaller gun is 20 degrees. For the larger guns, it's 22.5 degrees. And then also the number of helixes that we can shoot in one gun and the number of charges that will be required for full coverage. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the 32-gram charge is for a 3 3/8 gun. And again, it's been tested in 4.5, 5-inch, and 5.5 casing. The 5-inch gun is designed for 7-inch casing, and then our 7-inch gun for 9 5/8 casing. One thing I'd like to point out is that the 7-inch gun is large enough, so we're actually able to run the charges back to back. So this helps to shorten the length of the gun and ensure we get full coverage in a very limited area. These guns are run just like standard perforating guns. They can be run on slick line, on E-line, and also tubing conveyed.
Yes, that was my next question, which I think you answered. So the next question I had for you here was how they're deployed, which you just mentioned, but are there any other special considerations?
No, actually, there's not any more special considerations. If you're set up to run standard perforating guns, you can run the Dyna-Slot gun. We've actually got an excellent case history example of running the guns on slick line in the North Sea and shutting off potentially hazardous leak paths through the cement annulus.
So yeah, that's a great transition to my next question. My next question for you is, you could just talk about some examples of applications where the Dyna-Slot gun has been used. You just mentioned the North Sea, where they had some excellent results. Do we have any other examples of where else we've used the Dyna-Slot gun?
Sure, we've actually run the gun all over the world. We've shot them in the North Sea, like I mentioned, China, Malaysia, US. Canada happens to be a big market for the Dyna-Slot gun. They have very strict limitations on the amount of gas leakage that you can have on wells in Canada. We've had a lot of success in Colorado using the Dyna-Slot to open up the annulus to shut off gas migration. We've also had some excellent results with the Dyna-Slot replacing section milling in Pennsylvania. So we've run across all sorts of areas and challenges that we have faced with, and the Dyna-Slot has proven to be a unique solution to these problems.
Thank you for some of that background information and those examples. It's great to hear that the Dyna-Slot is being used all over the world and it's being used successfully all over the world. So definitely great to hear. Before we move into the Q&A section, just wanted to ask, are there any other final comments you have, any summary you would like to add about the Dyna-Slot?
Yeah, sure. So hopefully we've explained how the Dyna-Slot can be used as a compelling alternative to section milling and also to traditional squeeze perforations. Again, we provide a nice helical pattern, making sure we cover 100% of the casing, making sure we're able to hit all the voids and channels and intersect all the microannuli that might be behind the casing. And we think this will create a permanent seal across a full section. It's efficient. It's a much easier than section milling. And really, the Dyna-Slot should be the first attempt to eliminate gas migration or fluid migration behind the casing. So this helps eliminate the do-overs.
Definitely. Tom, thank you so much for all the information you provided with us today, the background information, the images, the charts that you showed us. You walking through that definitely helped my understanding of Dyna-Slot, and I'm sure the audience will definitely agree. So we've had some good questions come in from the audience. So I now want to get to addressing some of those. Our first question here. So the first question we have for you, you mentioned chemical squeeze applications where traditional guns did not work. So this person is just asking if you could just expand on that a little bit more.
Sure. I think what you've seen is the Dyna-Slot, the slots actually overlap. So we're actually covering more than 360 degrees of the casing. And if you're pumping a very expensive chemical or a very expensive resin, you definitely want to make sure that you intersect all those channels and voids. And then the people who do the P&A type work have seen that the DynaSlot is a solution for intersecting all the microannuli.
So let's see, our next question here. So they're saying a 61 gram charge sounds very large. So when you shoot a complete helix or two, is there a lot of gun swell?
No, actually, there's not. Like I said, we've done a lot of testing, and we've had a lot of good results in Pennsylvania, especially just recently. And so they're actually designed to shoot back to back. And we also have the scallop. The scallop helps reduce the amount of gun swelling and the amount of burrs that we have in our gun.
So our last question we have for you here, this person is asking, can you please discuss collateral damage in two strings?
Sure. The majority of our guns are actually run in two strings. We've been doing a lot of work in the US in 5.5 casing inside of 9 5/8. We've done a lot of testing, and our field results are showing that we don't have any problems interfering with the second casing string, the deeper casing string. So we do a lot of testing to make sure that there's no problems, and so far so good. And you know, we've proven that we can shoot the first string without damaging the second string.
So I think we're about out of time for today's webinar. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Tom, thank you again for your time today. Thank you to everyone for attending. And thank you for all the great questions. Apologies if we did not get to your question. If we did not have a chance to answer it during this live webinar, we will be sure to follow up with you by email. If you do have any other questions, please submit them to either of the email addresses that you'll see here on your screen. You'll also see a QR code to the right side of your screen. If you open up your camera on your smartphone and you scan this code, it will take you to a survey where you can provide us feedback on today's webinar. We'd really appreciate any comments or any feedback that you can provide to help future webinars. So thank you again to everyone for attending, and we look forward to having you join our next one. Details for our next webinar will be coming out soon. So to everyone, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn so you can have those updates. Thank you.